The sky above Fort Haven was wrong. It was purple instead of blue. The sun was not one bright light but two stars that burned orange and red, casting strange shadows that moved in two directions at once. Emma did not think this was strange anymore. She had lived on 7B for her entire life. For her, wrong was only a word that old people used when they talked about Earth. Fort Haven was a small colony. 300 people lived inside they grew food. They studied the planet. They worked and lived and tried to build a future away from Earth's crowded cities. Emma's father, Captain David, was the head of security. He made sure nobody died. He made sure the colony stayed safe. Emma was 8 years old. She was tall for her age. The lower gravity of 7B made her joints feel loose and flexible. She could jump higher than children on Earth. She could run faster, but her bones were also weaker. Dr. Hall had told her this. Dr. Hall was the colony's main scientist. She studied everything on this planet. She was always busy with her work. Emma liked to collect things. She found rocks that glowed faintly in the darkness. She found shells from dead creatures that lived near the water sources. She kept them in a small bag made of recycled plastic. Every rock told a story about 7B. Every shell was proof that life here was different from life on Earth. One evening, when the two suns were setting at different speeds, Emma saw something that caught her attention. There was a crystal-like rock near the edge of the colony's perimeter fence. It was larger than her hand. It caught the orange light and threw it back in different colors. Emma wanted that rock. She wanted it for her collection more than anything. The fence was supposed to protect the colony. It was made of metal that humans had brought from Earth. The fence stretched around the entire settlement in a big circle. Scientists said the fence would keep dangerous animals away. The fence made the colony safe. Emma had never questioned this. Nobody questioned it. She walked toward the fence. The path was made of hard-packed dirt. Some of this dirt came from Earth, some came from 7B. It was mixed together now. Emma's feet made small sounds as she walked. The colony was quieter now. Most people were inside eating dinner. The sky was getting darker. The two suns were almost gone. Emma reached the fence. She pushed against it. The fence did not give way. It was strong. She looked at the gate. The gate was closed. It was locked with a code that only adults knew. But Emma had watched her father use the code many times. She had memorized the numbers, 7249. The gate clicked open. She stepped through. The world beyond the fence was different. The ground was rougher. There were no plants that humans had brought from Earth. There were only native plants. They were strange. They had colors that did not exist on Earth. Some of them seemed to glow from inside. Some of them looked like they might bite. Emma walked toward the crystal rock. It was maybe 50 meters away. The darkness was growing. Her eyes could see better in darkness than old humans could. This was because she had grown up on a planet with two suns. Her body had adapted. Dr. Hall had explained this. The rock was closer now. Emma could feel the cool air on her face. The air on 7B was thin. It was breathable for humans only with practice. Emma had been breathing it her whole life. It felt normal to her. She was 10 meters away from the rock when the alarm started. The sound was loud and wrong. It came from the colony behind her. The alarm meant danger. Emma had heard this alarm before in practice drills, but this sounded different. This sounded real. This sounded like fear. Something moved in the darkness ahead of her. It was not human. It was not anything Emma had ever seen. It was large. It had a head that was too wide. Its skin seemed to shimmer with colors that were not natural. Emma knew immediately that this was not one of the studied creatures that Dr. Hall had. This was something new. The creature moved fast, not like a predator she had read about. Predators on Earth moved like snakes or cats. This moved like water. It was liquid and smooth and terrible. Emma ran. She forgot about the crystal rock. She forgot about everything except running back to the fence. Her small legs moved as fast as they could. The air burned her throat. The ground under her feet was rough and made her stumble. Behind her, the creature did not run. It flowed. There were more of them, 3 total. They came from different directions. Emma understood they were hunting together. They were coordinated. They were intelligent. They were coming for her because she was small and alone and away from the fence. She screamed. It was not a strong scream. The thin air of 7B made it weak. But the scream reached the colony's alarm system. Humans would come. They would save her. They had to save her. Her father had told her this. Her father had said that humans were strong. Humans protected their children. That was what humans did. But the creatures were faster than humans could run. Emma was 20 meters from the fence when the first creature caught up to her. She could see its teeth now. They were not like any teeth she had ever seen. They were arranged in circles. They looked like they could cut through anything. She tried to scream again, but terror had stolen her voice. The honey badger had been born on Earth. Its mother had raised it in a burrow beneath the dry ground of southern Africa. The badger had learned to fight before it learned to walk. It had learned to attack before it learned to trust. This was the way of honey badgers. They were small, but they were fierce. They did not know the meaning of the word surrender. When the badger was 2 years old, humans had captured it. They had put it in a cage. They had studied it. They had written things down about how it fought, how it refused to die, how it seemed to feel no fear. Scientists on Earth had become interested in the honey badger. They said it was the most fearless animal on the planet. They said it had no natural predator that it would not fight. They said it was impossible to break the spirit of a honey badger. Then the humans decided to preserve the honey badger. They took DNA from its blood. They stored the honey badger in a special cage. They transported it to a facility where many animals were kept. The facility was called the Deep Archive. It was located in underground tunnels in what used to be called Switzerland. But the honey badger did not stay in the Deep Archive long. A supply ship called the Aurora's Gift had been sent to 7B. This ship had been loaded with supplies for the colony: crates of food, equipment for repairs, scientific instruments, building materials. The honey badger had been placed in a crate labeled Genetic Preservation Unit 47 by mistake. A clerk had confused it with another crate that was supposed to contain only genetic samples. The honey badger was alive inside the crate when the Aurora's Gift left Earth. It was still alive when the ship traveled through space for 6 months. It was still alive when the ship landed on 7B. The journey had not killed the badger. The badger was too strong for that. It had chewed through the crate walls. It had found water in storage containers. It had found grain that was meant for human food. It had survived. This was what honey badgers did. They survived when everything else would die. When the ship's crew opened the cargo hold, the badger had run. Nobody had seen it escape. Nobody had recorded it leaving. For 3 months, the badger had been free on 7B, and nobody at Fort Haven had known it was there. The badger had learned the planet fast. It understood that the thin air was dangerous. It stayed in places where the air was thicker, near water sources and native vegetation. It learned what animals on 7B could be eaten. It learned which ones were poison. It learned the patterns of the two suns. It learned how to survive in a place that was not its home. The badger had learned one more thing. It had learned that when something young and small was in danger, it would fight anything to protect it. This instinct came from deep inside the badger's genetic code. Honey badgers on Earth had learned this behavior over millions of years. They lived in family groups. They protected their young with absolute commitment. A honey badger would fight a lion to protect a baby badger. A honey badger would attack a human if a human threatened its family. On 7B, the badger had no family, but something in its ancient DNA recognized a young creature in danger. The first creature that had been hunting Emma was called, that was from the northern part of 7B. It was large, with a body made of smooth scales. It had teeth arranged in circles that could bite through bone. It had claws that were sharp enough to cut metal. It was designed by millions of years of evolution to be a hunter. It was designed to kill. The had never met anything like a honey badger. When the badger hit the first, it was moving at full speed. The badger weighed only 30 pounds, the weighed over 300, but the badger had force and direction and absolute commitment to attack. The impact knocked the sideways. The tried to bite the badger. This was its primary hunting method. On 7B, most creatures were soft inside. When the bit them, they died. But the honey badger's skin was different. It was thick and loose. It was made of muscle and fat that had learned to survive attacks from creatures much larger than itself. This teeth found only skin. The teeth closed on nothing vital. The badger twisted its body. Its skin turned in its mouth, giving the badger room to move. The badger bit back. It aimed for this front leg, where the bone was close to the surface and the scales were thinner. The badger's bite was small compared to this bite, but it was exact and powerful. It was the bite of an animal that had learned to hurt creatures 10 times its size. The screamed. The sound was loud and wrong. It was the sound of pain from a creature that was not used to being hurt. The second tried to flank the badger. It came from the side, trying to bite at the badger's rear leg. But the honey badger had been fighting this way forever. Its body was flexible in ways that other animals were not. It twisted almost completely around, still partially inside the first's mouth, and bit the second creature's face. The two that were hunting Emma stopped their attack. They looked at the small, dark creature that was destroying them. They looked at each other. There was communication happening in their bodies. The scales changed colors. Patterns moved across their skin. They had made a decision. The hunt was over. The first ran. It was wounded in many places. Its leg was bleeding. Its face was bleeding. It did not care. It just wanted to be away from the small creature that would not stop fighting. The second followed. The third, which had been circling around Emma, looked at the badger. The badger looked back. The badger did not move. The badger did not stop because stopping was not something it understood. They decided that today was not the day to learn how to die. It ran toward the northern territories. The badger watched them go. It was breathing hard. Its body was covered in small cuts. Blood was dripping from its mouth, but none of it was its own. The adrenaline was still moving through its system. The fight was not over yet in its mind. There were still enemies. But Emma was standing there, staring at the badger with the biggest eyes the creature had ever seen. The badger smelled her. It could smell her fear. It could smell her confusion. It could smell that she was young. The badger had a choice to make. It could attack her too. She was small. She was alone. She was separated from her group. But something in the badger's ancient code was different now. This young creature had been in danger. The badger had fought to protect it. That was enough. That was all the badger's genetics had ever wanted from life. Dr. Hall did not sleep for 3 days. She sat in the colony's main research center and watched the video footage over and over again. Every frame, every angle, every moment. The security cameras had recorded everything. They had recorded Emma running from the fence. They had recorded the creatures attacking. They had recorded the small dark thing that came from nowhere and changed everything. Dr. Hall was the head of science for Fort Haven. She had studied 7B for 5 years. She had 243 different species. She had written papers about the ecosystem. She had sent reports back to Earth explaining everything that lived on this planet. She had never seen anything like what the cameras showed. The creature that had saved Emma did not belong on 7B. Dr. Hall called up the database of every animal on the planet. She searched for matches. She looked at size, shape, behavior. Nothing fit. She looked at creatures that had been reported in scientific literature. Nothing matched. She looked at historical records from Earth. She found it in the 3rd hour of searching. A honey badger, an animal that was supposed to be extinct in the wild for 200 years. An animal that only existed in genetic archives and preserved DNA. An animal that should not be here. But it was. Dr. Hall pulled up the ship manifests. The Aurora's gift had arrived 3 months ago. She went through every crate, every container, every item that had been loaded onto the supply ship. It took her hours. Crate number 4473 was labeled Genetic Preservation Unit 47. The description said it contained genetic samples. The weight was wrong. The weight was way too much for just samples. Dr. Hall contacted the archive on Earth. She explained the problem. Within an hour, she received a response. The archive had made a mistake. Crate 4473 did not contain genetic samples. It contained the actual animal. It contained a living honey badger that was supposed to be kept in cold storage. The badger had been sent by accident. So the badger had traveled through space. The badger had survived the journey. The badger had escaped into the colony. The badger had lived on 7B for 3 months. The badger had learned to survive, and the badger had come to save a human child. Dr. Hall called Captain to her office. Emma came with him. The girl looked tired but okay. She was strong like her father. She was brave like her father, too. Dr. Hall showed them the footage. She showed them her research. She explained about the honey badger and Earth and how it came to be on this planet. The creature that attacked Emma, Dr. Hall said. We call them, they are apex predators from the northern region. They hunt together in small groups. They kill very efficiently. They have never encountered anything like what saved your daughter. Captain watched the footage. He watched Emma run. He watched the chase her. He watched the small dark creature crash into the hunters like a meteor. He watched the hunters decide that today was not the day to catch a child. What was it thinking? Emma asked. Why did it save me? Dr. Hall chose her words carefully. This was not soft. This was not gentle. This was truth. Emma deserved truth. Honey badger was born on Earth, Dr. Hall said. Earth is a very hard place. It is full of creatures that want to kill other creatures. The honey badger learned to fight everything. It learned to never give up. And it learned one more thing. It learned to protect young creatures. That instinct was written in its body by millions of years of evolution. When it saw you in danger, it did not think about whether you were human or badger or alien. It only thought that a young creature needed protecting. So it protected you. Emma nodded. She understood this. She had understood it the moment the badger looked at her. Captain was not thinking about protection. He was thinking about strategy. He was thinking about what this meant for the colony, a creature like that. A creature that would fight anything. A creature that was nearly impossible to hurt. "Is it dangerous?" he asked. "Very," Dr. Hall said, "but not to us. The badger saved Emma. It could have attacked us. It did not. I believe the badger understands that we are not prey. We are not threats. We are family in some way that we do not quite understand yet." Dr. Hall pulled up more data. She had analyzed the wounds she had taken samples. She had run them through the colony's medical analyzer. What she found was shocking. "The honey badger carries bacteria," Dr. Hall said. "Earth bacteria, microorganisms that live on Earth but have never been in space before. When the badger bit the bacteria entered their wounds. They are not immune to Earth microorganisms. Their immune system has no defense." Captain understood immediately. "They're infected." "Yes," Dr. Hall said. "Those three are infected with diseases that are harmless to Earth creatures but potentially deadly to them. They will report this to their group. They will tell the other what happened. From the perspective, they encountered something worse than a good hunter. They encountered a disease vector. They encountered something that could kill their entire population if they were not careful." "So the colony is safer now," Emma said. "Yes," Dr. Hall agreed, "much safer." But she did not tell them the full truth. She did not tell them that humans might be even more dangerous than they realized. Humans had brought the honey badger to 7B. Humans had brought Earth microorganisms to this world. Humans had introduced something that they could not fight or defend against. Humans had made the afraid. In this colony, in this small group of humans on an alien world, lived a potential danger that nobody had asked for. They lived carrying the weight of Earth's harshness. They lived carrying creatures and microorganisms that could change the balance of power on this planet. Captain stood and walked to the window. He looked out at the native landscape. Somewhere out there, the honey badger was moving. Somewhere out there, they were running home, carrying the memory of pain and the knowledge of disease. "We need to find that badger," he said. "Why?" Dr. Hall asked. "Because," he said, "it saved my daughter. We owe it our protection. And maybe, just maybe, we need to understand what we have brought to this world. Maybe we need to know what we are capable of." Emma put her small hand on her father's arm. She did not say anything, but she understood. She understood that humans were not weak. Humans were not victims waiting to be saved. Humans carried the darkness of their own world inside them. Humans carried the strength of survival. And that was both beautiful and terrible. Dr. Hall made a decision that night. She would document everything. She would send the true reports back to Earth. The three that had attacked Emma returned to their territory in the Northern Highlands. The journey took them 2 days of hard running. They did not stop to hunt. They did not stop to rest. They had only one goal. They had to tell the rest of their population what they had encountered. They had a way of communicating that was not speech. They used colors in their scales. They used movements of their bodies. They used chemical signals that others could smell in the air. When the 3 wounded hunters reached their hive, they created a pattern that the whole group could understand. Danger had a shape. Danger had a smell. Danger had a size of only 30 pounds. The message spread through the population like a disease. Other hunting parties heard about the small, dark creature. They heard about the teeth that would not break. They heard about the body that could not be killed. They heard about the bacteria that caused sickness and death. Within 1 week, the behavior had changed completely. They avoided human settlements. When hunters saw humans, they ran away. They no longer treated humans as potential prey. They treated them as dangerous. They treated them as something that carried death inside them. Dr. Hall monitored this change from her research center. She had placed sensors throughout the region around Fort Haven. The sensors recorded movements. The data showed exactly what was happening. They were learning fear. "They are reorganizing their entire hunting pattern," she told Captain during a meeting. 3 weeks ago, they would come within 1 kilometer of the colony. Now they stay at least 5 kilometers away. They are changing their routes. They are avoiding areas where humans have been. "Is that good for us?" Captain asked. "Very good," Dr. Hall said. "We are safer, the colony is safer, but we need to understand what is happening. They are making a choice based on fear. Fear is powerful. Fear makes creatures do things that are not rational." Captain nodded. He understood fear. He had felt it when Emma was in danger. Fear had made him run faster than he had ever run. Fear had made him strong. Fear had made him dangerous. "The honey badger did that," Emma said. She was sitting in the corner of the office doing schoolwork on her tablet computer, but she was listening to everything. "The honey badger made them afraid." "Yes," Dr. Hall said. "The honey badger taught them that size is not everything. Strength is not just about being big. They learned something new about the world." Over the following weeks, evidence of the honey badger's presence appeared throughout the colony's outer region. A food storage facility was damaged, but nothing was destroyed. The badger had broken through a wall, eaten some grain, and then left. No destruction, no chaos, just survival. Native insect populations began to change. The honey badger was selective about what it ate. It hunted creatures that were dangerous to the colony's crops. It avoided creatures that helped the crops grow. The badger understood the ecosystem. The badger was learning how this world worked and making choices that helped it survive without causing damage. Captain made a decision that surprised many people in the colony. He wrote a formal recommendation that the honey badger should be protected by colony law. Resources would be allocated to help the creature. A water station would be set up in the outer region. Native prey populations would be monitored to make sure there was always enough food. "We brought this creature to our world by accident," Captain said during the colony council meeting. "We are responsible for it now. We will protect it." Some people disagreed. They said the badger was dangerous. They said it should be captured and sent back to Earth. But Emma stood up and spoke. "The badger saved my life," she said. Her voice was small, but every person in the colony could hear it. "It did not have to save me. It could have ignored me. It could have let the kill me. But it chose to protect me. I choose to protect it. Any person who does not agree with protecting the badger is saying that my life does not matter. I matter. The badger matters." Nobody argued with Emma after that. Dr. Hall continued her research. She worked on understanding the biology. She studied the bacteria that the honey badger carried. She made a discovery that was so significant that she called an emergency meeting. "The bacteria from the honey badger," she said, "is not just infecting the 3 that were attacked. It is spreading through their population. Some of them are getting sick. Some of them are dying. The immune system cannot fight Earth microorganisms." Captain leaned forward. "Are you saying we have a biological weapon?" "No," Dr. Hall said. "I am saying that Earth is a biological weapon. Humans carry inside them organisms that are harmless to us but deadly to creatures that have never been exposed to Earth life. When the honey badger bit it transferred those organisms. Now they are learning what Earth really is." Emma understood this. She had read about Earth in school. She had read about diseases and plagues that killed millions of people. She had read about how humans had learned to survive in one of the harshest environments in the galaxy. She had read about how humans carried that harshness with them wherever they went. "We are from a dangerous place," Emma said. "Yes," Dr. Hall agreed. "Earth is a dangerous place. Humans are dangerous because we come from a dangerous place. They did not know this. Now they know. Now they are afraid of us." The colony leadership made a decision to keep this knowledge classified. Other human colonies on 7B needed to maintain peaceful relations with the. Fear was a useful tool, but it was also dangerous. Fear could cause creatures to do desperate things. Fear could cause war. So the colony kept the secret. Dr. Hall wrote her reports carefully. She mentioned the attack. She mentioned the honey badger. But she did not mention the disease. She did not mention that every human in the colony was a potential carrier of death. She did not mention that they were slowly learning to be terrified of their human neighbors. But Captain knew, Dr. Hall knew, Emma knew. They understood what Fort Haven really was. Fort Haven was not just a settlement. It was an outpost of Earth. It was a piece of a world that had learned to survive by being brutal. It was a place where humans carried the weight of millions of years of evolution in harsh conditions. They had come to raid the colony expecting easy prey. They had learned that prey could fight back. They had learned that prey carried weapons inside its body. They had learned that prey could be deadly. One night, Captain took Emma outside the colony. They stood at the edge of the perimeter fence and looked out at the dark landscape. The 2 suns were below the horizon. The stars were appearing in the purple sky. "Is it wrong that they are afraid of us?" Emma asked. Captain thought about this for a long time. "No," he said finally. "It is not wrong. Fear teaches respect. Fear teaches caution. Fear teaches that other creatures are not what you thought they were. They will be more careful now. They will be more peaceful with other colonies. Fear has made this planet safer." "But the badger paid the price," Emma said. She had seen the wounds. She had seen the blood. "Yes," Captain said. "The badger paid the price. That is why we protect it. That is why we remember it. That is why we never forget what it did." In the darkness beyond the fence, the honey badger was resting in a small cave. It was healing from its 6 months had passed since the attack. The colony had settled into a new rhythm. They stayed away from Fort Haven. The colony was safer than it had ever been, but nothing was the same. Emma had changed. The colony had changed. Everything had changed because of a small dark creature that had come from Earth by accident. Emma was 9 years old now. She had become obsessed with learning everything about the honey badger. Dr. Hall taught her about Earth's biology. Emma learned about evolution. She learned about how creatures adapted to survive in harsh conditions. She learned about the honey badger's history on Earth. She learned about badgers that had fought lions and won. She learned about badgers that had broken into armored facilities to steal honey from bees. She learned about creatures that were small but refused to be weak. Emma started keeping detailed records of honey badger. She would watch the motion sensors. When the badger was detected near the colony, Emma would record the date, the time, and what the badger was doing. She created a map of the badger's movement patterns. She noticed that the badger returned to the same water source every 3 days. She noticed that the badger avoided the areas where might be hunting. Dr. Hall encouraged this research. Emma's observations were good. Emma's data was useful. Emma was becoming a scientist, just like her mother had been before her mother died on Earth. Emma was learning to see the world clearly and record what she saw without emotion. Emma was learning to ask questions and find answers. But Emma also understood something that scientists sometimes forgot. She understood that the honey badger was not just data. The badger was alive. The badger had saved her life. The badger had chosen to protect her when the badger could have ignored her. That choice meant something. That choice was real. One evening, when Emma was working in Dr. Hall's laboratory, an alarm came through the motion sensors. Something large was moving toward the colony's eastern perimeter. Captain arrived with his security team. He carried weapons. He was ready for danger. But the thing that appeared at the motion sensor was not any creature that the colony had seen before. It was the honey badger, and it was badly wounded. The badger was moving slowly. One of its front legs was bent at an angle that was not natural. The wound was old, not fresh. Infection had set in around the damaged leg. The badger's breathing was shallow. The badger was clearly in pain. Captain tensed. He had weapons ready. He did not know if the wounded badger was still dangerous. He did not know if pain would make the creature attack. Emma pushed past her father. She walked directly toward the honey badger. Captain reached out to stop her, but Emma was already moving. "Emma, no," her father said. But Emma did not listen. She approached the badger with no fear. She approached the badger with trust. The honey badger saw the small human child coming toward it. The badger was in pain. The badger was sick. The badger was exhausted. The badger had probably been in a fight with something else on 7B. The badger had lost that fight. But when the badger saw Emma, something in its ancient genetic code responded. This was the young creature it had protected. This was the reason the badger had fought This was family in a way that went beyond species and biology and worlds. Emma knelt beside the badger. She kept her movements slow. She kept her voice quiet. The badger sniffed her hand once, twice, and then seemed to relax into the soil. "It is okay," Emma whispered to the badger. "We will help you. You helped me. I will help you." Dr. Hall moved quickly. She assessed the badger's injuries. The broken leg was infected. The wound needed treatment. The badger needed medicine. The badger needed surgery. Captain made a decision. The colony had established a veterinary facility 6 months ago, right after the colony council had decided to protect the honey badger. The facility was small. It was understaffed, but it was equipped to handle surgery. The badger was transported to the veterinary facility. Dr. Hall worked through the night. She cleaned the wound. She set the broken bone. She treated the infection with every medication the colony had that might work on a mammal from Earth. She did not know if her treatment would work. The badger's biology was different from anything on 7B, but she tried. The badger lived. Over the following weeks, Emma spent most of her time with the recovering honey badger. She sat beside the creature, she talked to it, she read her science records out loud. She told the badger about everything she had learned about it. She told the badger about how badgers on Earth had survived for millions of years. She told the badger that it was strong. She told the badger that it would survive this too. The badger recovered slowly. Its wound healed, its legs straightened, the infection cleared, the creature regained its strength. Emma could see the life returning to the badger's eyes. She could see the wildness coming back. The badger was not meant to be caged. The badger was meant to be free. One morning, when the two suns were casting orange light across the colony, the badger stood up. It walked to the door of the veterinary facility. It looked at Emma. The badger's eyes were clear. The badger's body was strong. The badger was ready to leave. Emma opened the door. The honey badger walked out into the 7B sunlight. It stretched its body. It tested its leg. It smelled the air. It was ready for the world again. It was ready to survive. It was ready to protect. It was ready to be free. Emma walked with the badger to the perimeter fence. Other colonists watched from the distance. Captain was there. Dr. Hall was there. They all understood what was happening. The honey badger had come to Fort Haven by accident. The honey badger had stayed to save a child. The honey badger had been protected by the colony, but the badger did not belong here. The badger belonged to the wild. The badger stopped at the fence. It turned and looked at Emma one final time. Emma reached out her hand. The badger sniffed her fingers. The badger understood something. The badger understood that Emma was part of its family now. The badger understood that this young creature had given it purpose. Then the badger turned and walked into the purple landscape of 7B. It moved with strength and confidence. Its dark fur disappeared into the native vegetation. It was gone. Emma did not cry. She was strong like the badger. She was brave like the badger. But she understood that some things were not meant to be kept. Some things were meant to be wild. Some things were meant to be free. "Will we see it again?" Emma asked her father. Captain looked out at the landscape where the badger had disappeared. He thought about the future. He thought about what might come next. He thought about all the ways that a small, fierce creature could affect the fate of entire worlds. "I think," he said slowly, "that we will always see it. It is part of Fort Haven now. It is part of who we are. The universe needed to learn what Earth is really capable of. Maybe the honey badger was brought here for exactly that reason. Maybe it was not an accident. Maybe it was destiny." Emma nodded. She understood her father's words. She understood that the honey badger was now part of the story of Fort Haven. The story would be told many times. Children would hear about the girl who was attacked by. Children would hear about the small, dark creature that saved her. Children would learn that strength does not come from size. Children would learn that courage comes from inside. Emma began to write down the complete story. She wrote about Emma and the honey badger. She wrote about how a creature from Earth had changed the fate of an entire colony. She wrote about how a child and a badger had become connected across the distance between worlds. Dr. Hall helped Emma edit the story. Captain helped Emma understand the military and strategic implications of what had happened. Together, they created a record that would be sent back to Earth. The story would be transmitted through space. Humans on Earth would read about what had happened on 7B. Humans on Earth would understand that their abandoned world still had power. Humans on Earth would understand that the creatures that came from harsh places were the strongest creatures in the universe. Months later, when the story had been transmitted back to Earth, Emma received messages from scientists and historians and people who had read about the honey badger. They told her that she had done something important. They told her that she had shown the universe what humans really were. They told her that she had reminded them why humans should never be underestimated. Emma kept those messages. She kept them in her personal records. She kept them as proof that what she and the honey badger had done mattered. It mattered to the colony. It mattered to Fort Haven. It mattered to Earth. It mattered to the universe. Years later, when Emma was grown up, she would become a teacher. She would teach young colonists about the history of 7B. She would teach them about the dangers of underestimating threats. She would teach them about evolution and adaptation and survival. But most importantly, she would teach them about the honey badger. She would teach them that the universe was not divided into strong and weak. The universe was divided into creatures that refused to give up and creatures that did not understand what it meant to refuse. The honey badger had refused. A small, fierce creature from Earth had come to an alien world and refused to accept defeat. That was the real story of Fort Haven. That was the real story of humanity on 7B, not about building cities or establishing colonies or creating permanent settlements, but about creatures that carried the weight of their history inside them, creatures that had learned to survive in the harshest conditions, creatures that refused to acknowledge the word surrender. The honey badger had done this, and in doing so it had changed everything. It was becoming part of the ecosystem of 7B. It was becoming a legend that they would tell their children about. The small dark creature that could not be killed. The creature from the stars that carried disease. The creature that changed the balance of power on an entire planet. And nobody except a small colony of humans would ever understand what had really happened. Nobody would understand that a creature from Earth, a creature that should have died in space, had survived to teach the universe a lesson about humanity. The lesson was simple. Do not underestimate the creatures that come from hard worlds. Do not assume that small things are weak things. Do not forget that humans carry the weight of their history inside them. And never, ever attack the children of humans, because humans will protect their young with a fury that is impossible to overcome. She would tell them that humanity had brought something dangerous to 7B. Not the honey badger, not the microorganisms, but the potential of what humans could do. The potential of what humans really were when everything was removed except the will to survive and protect what mattered. They would learn to be afraid, but they would learn this lesson at the cost of a creature that should never have come to this planet. A creature that had only wanted to eat and survive and protect the young when they needed protecting. Dr. Hall thought about this as she prepared her reports for Earth. She thought about the weight of choices. She thought about what it meant to be human on a world that had never seen a human before. And she made sure that the honey badger would be protected by the colony, no matter what came next, no matter what happened. The badger turned away from Emma and limped back into the darkness of 7B. It needed food. It needed water. It needed to find a place to rest. The planet had provided those things before. It would provide them again. Behind the badger, Captain David came running through the fence gate. He carried Emma into his arms. He was holding her so tight that Emma could barely breathe. He was crying. His security team was running behind him, weapons ready to fight anything. But there was nothing left to fight. The badger was gone, they were gone, Emma was alive. That was all that mattered. Then something that was not human, and not from the colony, crashed into the creatures like a small dark meteor. Captain David was running through the corridors of the colony when the alarm went off. He knew immediately what it meant. His security training kicked in like a switch. He had 30 seconds to reach the fence, 30 seconds to reach his daughter. He had run through this scenario in his mind 1,000 times. Always he was fast enough. Always he reached her in time. But he did not see what his daughter was about to see. He did not see the creature that came from the rocks beyond the native plant line. Nobody had recorded this creature before. Nobody had data on it. Nobody knew it was there. It was small. It was dark. It moved like it was made of fury and muscle and pain that had learned to think. It was nothing from this planet. It was something that had come from somewhere else entirely. It was something that should not have existed. It was something that was about to change everything about how humans understood the word survival.